Last night, Labour Party leader An Tánaiste Eamon Gilmore, good morning.
Good morning.
Firstly, yesterday during his speech, Brendan Howlin said the difficult decisions made were based on three guiding principles: fairness, jobs and reform. Do you think that he succeeded in being guided by those principles, Tánaiste?
Oh yes, indeed I do. If you look at this budget in totality, and Michael Noonan has already said publicly that it is not intended today to increase taxes on working people. When you look at this budget in its totality, we will have produced a budget in very difficult times, which does not increase taxes on working people, which does not reduce the basic rates of social welfare payments, which protects the basic rates of child benefit, which protects the pupil-teacher ratios in our primary schools and the numbers of special needs assistants and the services that are available to people with disabilities. And at the same time, we have managed to achieve the reduction in public expenditure that is required under the programme that we have, and that is required anyway because of the level of borrowing that the country is doing. When you reduce public expenditure, there are no easy ways of doing that. There is going to be a consequence for services, there is going to be a consequence for individual people, but we have set out to do it as fairly as possible, as reasonably as possible. I believe that we have achieved that, and I think that we also have to bear in mind the reason why we're doing it. The reason that we have to do this is so that we can get our economy to recover, we can get out of the difficulty that we're in, and that we can bring back prosperity again to this country.
That is maybe. Do you think it's fair that young people on disability payment are having their payments cut?
No, what is being done is there is a level of payment which is on job seekers payment, which is paid already to, which is age related, and all of these payments, whether people are on disability payments or on job seekers, are going to be paid on the same basis. The same level of payment will be paid to job seekers as is being paid to people on disabilities.
Do you think it's fair to somebody who has a severe disability who has no option, they cannot work? Do you think it's fair to them their payment should be cut?
No, the point here is that there are reforms being made in the social welfare system, and among the reforms that are being made, and I think everybody understands that reforms have to be made in the social welfare system, is to standardise the levels of payments that are being paid to people across the board.
In the case of somebody who suffers from severe disability who has no option, can't work?
Any reduction in payment or any cut is difficult.
Is it fair?
It's not. Well, it's not something that any of us want to be doing, but these are choices that have to be made. There is a standard rate of payment, and the rate of payment that is being paid across the board will be the same level of payment to all people who are at the same age level.
But is that fair, Tánaiste? You say that the budget has been guided by these three principles. Many people listening this morning would say that simply is quite hard to fathom, that somebody who suffers from a very severe disability, has no option, cannot go out into the workplace, should suffer.
No, services for disabilities are being maintained, and that is quite clear in the entire programme that we have undertaken. All of the services that are available to people on disabilities, including education and training services, all of these are being maintained. There are no cuts in these services. There are reforms in the way in which payments are being made, and among those reforms is to move towards a standardised form of payment, the same level of payment based on the age-related payments. Any impact, and there are impacts in this budget on people and on individuals and on individual families. None of us want to be doing that. That's not something I want to be doing. That's not something Brendan Howlin wants to be doing. But the reality of where we are in terms of our finances means that we do have to reduce public expenditure, and we have to do that in a fair way. And as I've said, we are doing it in a context of producing a budget which does not increase tax on working people, does not cut the basic rates of social welfare, does not cut the basic rates of child benefit, and maintains services for people with disabilities and our children in our schools.
On the issue of reform, the Minister for Health, James Riley, said on this programme not so long ago, no area in health was utterly protected. There'll be many people, when they hear the word reform and a comment like that, will say it's an awful pity that the Croke Park Agreement didn't have areas of it that couldn't be utterly protected.
Well, the Croke Park Agreement is about reform. Croke Park Agreement is about achieving the reforms in our public services, and they are being achieved.
Does the agreement need to be updated, reviewed?
Uh, all agreements are reviewed on a continuing basis anyway, but if you make an agreement, you keep it. And in the case of the Croke Park Agreement, what that is about is it's an agreement which provides for reform. Brendan Howlin has already announced a package of measures, the most comprehensive package of public service reform that we have seen in this country, which involves significant reductions in the numbers of people.
said on the front line last night that to change it would invite trouble. Is that from the unions? Is that the main reason that it's not on the table?
You don't break an agreement. If you make an agreement with people and you make an agreement about their pay, about their job security and about reform, you keep that. And the agreement is delivering on reform. We are reducing the numbers of people who are working in our public services. That means that people have to do more very often with less. That means that you have to have cooperation from the people who are working with you. We're achieving that level of cooperation, and that level of cooperation and those reforms will bring about the savings that we need to make in our budget.
One change you've made to the way the budget is announced is to spread it out over 2 days. Do you think it's a good idea to give the nation 2 days of this pain as opposed to just do it in one quick short shot in?
I think we have to move away. There was this old-fashioned way of doing the budget where everything was a great big secret, and the Minister for Finance came in and waved his briefcase on budget day and said, here are all the secrets in the budget. I think we have to move away. I think that's an old-fashioned way of doing it.
Is leaking budget details over a 4 or 5 week period the way to go?
No, it's not, and I don't think that budget details should be leaked. But remember that we have undertaken a comprehensive review of expenditure across all departments. That has been going on since last July. I think as it happened, I think all of the various options that were being considered by government ended up in the public domain.
We're all leaked,
anyway.
and as late as this weekend, the finer details we could read in Sunday newspapers.
I don't think that stuff should be leaked. But I do think that what we do need to do is I think we need to move to a system of doing our budgeting which is much more open, which is much more done in the public. At the end of the day, we're talking here about the people's money, the taxpayers' money, and I think that the various options that are being considered by government, I think would provide for a much healthier debate about budget options if it was done much more in the public domain than has been the case in the past. And Brendan Howlin yesterday indicated that the government intends to move much more in that direction of having budget matters and estimates matters debated much more in the public, because it's the people's business.
If we can turn to the EU summit, which is taking place at the end of this week, David Begg said on the programme earlier, Angela Merkel was putting forward a programme of what he called austerity on steroids. Isn't this a great opportunity for the government to go in and really do a deal with their European counterparts, given the fact that it now looks like we could have an EU treaty here by as early as next March?
Well, I think there are two objectives that the government has. One is in conjunction with all of the other member states of the European Union, and particularly the Eurozone, is to solve the problems in the Euro, and that needs to be done by decisive action being taken. Secondly, we have to look to our own national interests here, and particularly to what can be done in respect of the debt burden that this country has. And we have an approach to the discussions. One of the what now has to happen is that the President of the European Council, President Van Rompuy, has to present his paper. I understand that paper will be made available to us later today. There will be discussions then tomorrow involving at official level on the contents of that paper.
Will our voice be heard, or will we be pushed down the agenda once again?
You can rest assured our voice will be absolutely heard. We have, as recently as last night, we were discussing this at the Government's Economic Management Council about the approach that we will take to these discussions. We're very clear about them.
What will that approach be?
We've been briefed. Well, first of all, it will be at two levels. First of all, to work with other European Union states and Eurozone states to protect the euro and to ensure that it succeeds. I think that has to be the priority number one. And in that context, we will look at the proposals that President Van Rompuy will put forward later today and examine those and then respond to them. And secondly, we will look to what, as a country, we need ourselves out of these discussions.
But Europe comes first?
Both go hand in hand. We are part of the euro, and I think from the beginning of this economic crisis, one of the things that I've certainly been saying and the government has been saying is that this is not just an Irish problem, this is also a European problem. The two go hand in hand, and we have to work together on it, but we will work together on it in a way that ensures that Ireland's best interests are protected.
Do you expect a referendum before next March?
Well, that will depend on the content of any treaty change that is proposed. We have to see what the detail of that would be, what the text of it would be, and then obviously we would have to get legal advice on it.
Given the austerity we've seen in this country over the past period of time, do you think there's any possibility the Irish people would pass such a referendum?
I think that what we have to look at is we have to look at recovery. And we have to look at the steps that are needed to bring about recovery. I think that certainly does mean that we have got to have corrections in our public finances, but also we have to ensure that there is growth and job creation, and that is why the government, in addition to doing what we're doing in the budget, is bringing forward proposals. We've already put in the Strategic Investment Fund. We've announced a number of new funds for start-up businesses, for small and medium-sized businesses, and we're requiring the banks to deliver a target of lending to small and medium-sized businesses so that jobs can be created.
Would you expect Europe to say to you and to say to the government coming in, what do you need us to do for you to get this treaty passed?
No, I don't think it has to be done like that. It's not a case of what is to be done to get the treaty passed. I think the question that has to be asked now is what needs to be done in Europe to ensure that the market instability about the euro is ended, and that the European economy and the Irish economy can grow, create jobs and provide a security for our people in the future.
Is there anything can be done if Standard & Poor moves forward, where a number of countries on credit watch, we're possibly looking at downgrading in the next few weeks?
Perhaps one of the things that we need to do in Europe is to look at the whole question of the way in which ratings are done. I find it very strange that these kind of private institutions who may have their own vested interests are pronouncing on the financial health of independent sovereign countries and now of an entire continent. Perhaps it is time for the European Union to look at the idea that has been mooted some time ago of a European rating agency which is publicly controlled rather than controlled by some private financial interests.
An Tánaiste Eamon Gilmore, thank you for coming in to us this morning. 8:31 now.